But there has to be the question, would the Duke and Duchess of Sussex go to Balmoral? Would they be invited? Will they be welcome? What's your thoughts?
Well, we are always told, aren't we, Matt, that the King's door is always open to Harry and Meghan. Would they be invited? I don't see an actual physical invitation being issued, but were they to ask, it'd be very difficult for the King to say no. He doesn't want this distance with his son, and he certainly doesn't want this barrier between him and his grandchildren. You know, he's met Lilibet once, Archie just a handful of times. That's really, really sad. And obviously geography plays a part in that. We're not going to see the King jumping on a plane and heading over to California to see them. Would they be welcome? Look, we know things with the Waleses and the Sussexes are extremely tense. I don't see any signs of any thawing there. And it's really not a priority, is it, for the Waleses now? One of the things that they really want to focus on is keeping things calm, stress levels down during the Princess of Wales's recuperation. I really don't think a reunion with Harry and Meghan is going to do anything for stress levels at this point in time, and it's just not their focus.
And we're going to have to wait on this. I mean, I don't really think Meghan's been to Balmoral that very much. I'm just trying to cast my mind back whether I think she'd been invited a few times back in the reign of like Queen Elizabeth II. I think they turned it down.
I'm not sure that Meghan is someone who particularly wants to go off stalking and shooting. We know that, you know, when she first went to Sandringham with Prince Harry and some of his friends and they were going out on a shoot, she was distinctly unimpressed by that. I don't know that Balmoral would be her first choice.
It has to move both ways. I don't know if you recall, I think it was last summer, the King, I think Harry was coming over and the King said, well, it was the anniversary of the late Queen's death, actually, I remember now. And Harry said, well, I'm coming over for an Invictus event or a Well Child event. It was on his way to Invictus. So Harry was coming over for a Well Child event. And he said, could I see you? And the King's team fired back and said, well, yes, he's at Balmoral, come to Balmoral. And he said, no, that doesn't really fit with my plans. I need to do some things in London. So there are these little kind of shoots of potential goodwill. There is a chance that there's so many properties at Balmoral if one of them just said, OK, and made the effort.
Yeah, and there could be this kind of peace summit between father and son. But, you know, there have been suggestions that there'll be this huge, full family summit and everybody gathered to kind of thrash things out once and for all. I don't buy into that. I can't see that happening. And all the signs around Meghan are that she doesn't really have any desire to set foot in this country again. You know, Prince Harry came back for the service at St Paul's to mark 10 years of the Invictus Games. They were then heading off on their tour and Meghan dipped into Heathrow Airport and straight back out again. Yeah. She didn't come to the UK. There was, of course, the controversy over whether the King had snubbed Harry by not meeting him, and then apparently Harry had been offered a room at one of the palaces and had turned it down because of security. I mean, frankly, it's a mess, and it's a very sorry mess. It's sad, and I think, you know, mistakes have been made along the way on both sides. But as long as there is no trust, and that's the fundamental issue here, as long as there's no trust between them, that those conversations that they have aren't going to end up on a breakfast show or in a documentary or on the pages of a book, then those conversations just can't happen.
And as I say, if the King was to say, yes, of course you can come to Balmoral, they'd have to make sure there were other certain members of the family would not want to be there. You know, I'm just talking about the Waleses. That couldn't happen. But I guarantee there will be stories over the next couple of weeks and months, true or not, floating around saying that they have been invited.
Well, we're getting into silly season, so there's bound to be some of these stories. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is we just don't know. Yeah. And, you know, we don't know what is going on behind closed doors with the Sussexes and the royal family. And obviously, you know, we don't quite know whose side of it to believe. The example of Harry when he came over and the statement was put out by his spokesperson that the King was too busy to meet him, and then a rather different narrative, recollections may vary, that phrase that keeps on rearing its head. So it's very difficult, but as you say, there will be certain members of the family who will be less than willing to open their arms to Harry and Meghan if they were to return.
Just final point on that. when Harry came over, it was the Sussexes that put that statement out.
Exactly, it was the Sussexes spokesperson.
It was them that said, "Oh, the King's too busy." That doesn't go down well.
Well, it doesn't help, does it? Because actually, less said the better. Yeah. If you want to heal relations, actually, it's got to be done privately behind closed doors.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not great for us, of course.
They're not talking.
But they're not talking. Yeah. They're not talking. Those lines of communication, this is no ordinary family. Yeah. They don't pick up the phone and have those conversations. Perhaps not helped by the fact the King doesn't even have a mobile phone, so you've got to try and find him somewhere or go through Camilla or whatever else. But, you know, they do not have those conversations that we might expect.
Well, look, I might pop up to Balmoral over the summer. It's a lovely place. So I often pop up there just to have a little look around, but it's gorgeous. And I'm sure that, you know, Princess Catherine will have a wonderful, relaxing time up there in the King.
We'll be looking out for members of the family and perhaps the new Prime Minister attending the Highland Games as well. But
on Harry, so I want to get your thoughts on this Pat Tillman Award. We discussed this last week, and, you know, I'm under the impression that he's got this award for his efforts with Invictus, which I do find commendable. Yep. You know, I've always said that I've been to the Invictus Games twice, and I think you've seen it as well, and I think it's a really good thing. And for, you know, I still think it's commendable what he did in Afghanistan. I know people knock it, but I still think serving in Afghanistan was a very, you know, honourable thing that he did. But he's picked up this award, or he will be picking up this award, and his mother, Pat Tillman's mother, is angry about this and doesn't think he deserves it. What do you think Harry's reaction? We haven't heard from Harry as to, you know, if he's annoyed that people were criticising for picking up this award. Should he pick it up? Should he say, no, this is inappropriate? Where do you sit on this?
I think he's going to be very stung by the backlash to this award, because you're right, what he has done through the Invictus Games is extremely laudable. I think it's the best thing that he has done. This is his legacy project, and there are so many people who would say that he has changed their lives, even saved their lives through what he has done with the Invictus Games. The problem is that the backlash this time round isn't coming from the usual suspects. It is coming from Mary Tillman, Pat Tillman's mother, who says she can't understand why they'd pick such a divisive and controversial figure. It is coming from senior military figures that Prince Harry would respect their opinion. The likes of Lord West, the former head of the Royal Navy, for example, saying he should turn this down, that he doesn't deserve it. And that's really, really going to sting for him. Everything that he's done, his Afghanistan service, the Invictus Games, the problem is that that is being drowned out by the noise and the controversies over recent years. And that's what Mary Tillman is referring to.
I think the what you pointed out there was what she said, a divisive figure. And that is something that I think is going to stick. Because we talk about, I think there was they were called, you know, grifters.
Yes.
And that's something that sticks, these kind of names. And I think this is the problem for Harry, is that he's becoming, as Mary Tillman says, a divisive figure.